Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Happy Thursday, happy Cinco de Mayo. And today is a very, very special day because this is the first time I'm ever getting the opportunity to interview one of my childhood friends. I'm here with my friend Mike, and Mike and I go way back literally to kindergarten, and we've been neighbors for quite a while, and our parents have been friends, and we grew up together. We went to the same high school. We graduated around the same time. We were on the wrestling team together. We even went out and got our hunting license together. We've been through quite a lot, brother. And I am very, very excited to introduce you to the Loco Listens community here. So Michael A., hello. You are a self-described blue collar worker, which I think is pretty badass. And I'm really looking forward to talking about what that really means. You're also an outdoorsman, which is, it just mentioned the hunting license earlier, and you've taught me quite a lot about Mother Earth. Really blessed. You're also self-described right libertarian, and I love the word libertarian and all that it stands for. And you're also an aspiring Badlands resident, which also sounds pretty badass. But
I'll get into what I mean by that.
Yeah, man, we're gonna unpack all of that. So I'm happy to have you here, man. Happy Thursday. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's a beautiful day. I got some stuff done that I need to get done. I took my time to relax. Today's my day off. 2 days off a week, and then the other days, break your back and answer stupid questions all day long.
Oh, I totally
good time,
hear you, man.
Good time.
Stupid questions is my forte,
Yeah.
Well, cheers to that. I'm glad, we can spend this day off and, have some fun. And so for the ritual first question, I would like to ask you, Mike, when did you start to speak your truth?
I started to speak my truth, I would say, towards the beginning of 2020 as the world fell apart. Maybe people have given you that answer already, but I really started to see the separation between myself and my family, my peer group in terms of age, my coworkers that I've gotten along with for a long time. All of a sudden, I've got all these serious disagreements with on daily life kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I started to see, the big picture issues and start to be really concerned about the fragility of it all. And that's why I've gotten so far into this lifestyle that we're going to talk about today, which is prepping.
Right on, man. Right on. And part of that lifestyle has come directly into my own home here. And I appreciate you because you gifted me a meal stash. I think it's a 1 month supply. Is that correct? It's, I haven't
Give or
really
take, depending upon who you are and what your diet's like. Yeah, it could last you that long or shorter or longer, depends on what you're doing.
So let me say this, bro. I hope I never have to open it, or when I do, it'll be like 50 years from now. But I just want to say thank you for that, for looking out for me and for being like, hey, man, hopefully things don't go to shit, but they absolutely might. So here's something just in case. And I'll always remember that, man. And I appreciate that wonderful thought of being like, hey, like I want to make sure my friends are prepared too. It's really cool. So I hope I can return the favor and gift you something useful for the apocalypse. But
yeah,
speaking
exactly.
of that,
for the upcoming, the impending doom or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. But I'm sure by the end of this conversation we'll be prepared, which is ironic to think about, just being able to chat about these topics and helping other people who are listening who may not feel prepared but want to learn more. So as a way of introduction, would you describe yourself as a prepper, and like how did you start to consider these ideas? Was it before COVID, or how
it was
far back
definitely
was this?
it was definitely before COVID that I got into this. I think the start of it was my short time in the Boy Scouts organization.
Mm.
It was literally 1 year. I joined when I was older than the average person joining. So a lot of younger kids like outranked me and have done so many other things than me in the organization. But the motto of the whole place was to be prepared. That was the whole thing, right?
Always.
To pack extra stuff
Yep.
so that your trip or your outing, whatever you're doing, goes as smoothly as possible, regardless of, oh, but it's heavy or it takes up space. Having the extra stuff to make sure that if you need it, you have it. Not if you need it and you don't have it and you say, well, oh shit, okay, I guess we'll make do. And then you have either wet socks, a hole in your tent, whatever is going on, you know, extra shit, and the correct extra shit is always the best way to go. Right. And that's, you know, a day at the office, a day in the canyons. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right.
That have the right stuff and have extra stuff when it comes to the important stuff. It's all about stuff.
Important stuff is kind of misleading too, because some people don't realize, like, what was that film Apocalypse Now where he's like, if you want to survive Vietnam, you need to have dry socks, right? Or was that Forrest Gump? Either way, it's like
I'm pretty sure both, but
both.
Either way it applies.
You're still in Vietnam either way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now there's all sorts of crap, like people, like they always say, like, oh, you know, I need to save money, so you buy shitty shoes, let's say. But your feet are the first point in your suspension system of your body. If you're going to invest in anything, invest in your feet, and that's socks and proper boots or whatever. Like you were saying earlier, you might need to get a good pair of boots soon.
Right.
I can probably recommend some brands. I just upgraded for myself because I work on concrete floors all day. So I needed to invest in my feet so that my knees and my hips and my back aren't all screwed, because all of those problems can start with just your feet.
Yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense. It's like when they say work from the ground up, like that's something we should take literally. Like if you start from your feet and work your way up, like you'll be prepared to deal with that weight that you have to carry around or whatever you might have to do to just to survive or to acquire food or whatever. And so let me ask you this. So in 2020, I started playing this video game called Far Cry 5, and it takes place in Montana. Yeah, I'm sure
one of my favorite.
know all about it. Yeah, so there's like a crazy cult called Eden's Gate, and they're cut off from civilization, and basically you're fighting your way through this crazy like Jonestown style cult, and you're trying to survive. And all these people were preppers, and they have like bunkers full of stuff. Now, I know you personally. I know you don't have your own bunker, but I do want to ask you this, and for, you know, practical reasons that people, and please feel free to give brands whatever you want to endorse, because I did spend some time after playing Far Cry going on those YouTube channels and being like, well, what does this guy's bug out bag look like? You know, what kinds of gear do people get? So do you want to start with your car? Like when you're driving around, what do you make sure to carry with you?
All right. So if we're talking about everyday preparedness and stuff that you're going to have in your car, I keep a few extra large, like liter-sized water bottles, kind of like this, actually.
There you go.
It underneath my driver's seat, because, you know, they'll get warm, and you should probably replace them within a year if you haven't used them yet. But there's one thing, like if you're going to get trapped or stuck somewhere, cleaning water, sanitizing water, putting iodine in water, it's a pain. Having a good amount of clean water on you without like weighing down your car significantly, that's a start. I always go to work with a full water bottle anyway, but I have extra stuff in my car all the time. I have first aid. I have a jumper box. I have tools to take off my tires. I have an air compressor as part of the jump pack that I have. I've got a bushcraft knife, some cordage, duct tape, tarp. I got a whole bag that's ready to leave my car if I have to ditch my car. I have my concealed carry. I have an extra magazine. I have a flashlight. And then any paperwork that I need for the car and walking around money. And that's the standard loadout pretty much. And there's like in the trunk, there might be like a wool blanket that can be used for a bunch of shit, and some food, not a lot, nothing spoilable, obviously, but that's kind of the basic rundown. And as things get into different scenarios, like if you have to worry about clearing storm damage, then maybe you have your machete or your medium size
right.
axe.
Yep.
This past winter, I had that because I had a lot of branches coming down. And I had to clear some stuff on my way home a couple times. So I invested in an axe and a packable saw to keep in my trunk for those times a year. Not all the time, because you're going to ruin your gas mileage if you have like the whole kit and caboodle in your trunk.
The whole kitchen
You're
sink, as Joe
gonna
Rogan
see
says.
a dip in your You're going to see a dip. I only drive sedan, so there's only so much capability I can put in the car. But I've been happy, and I've surprised other people in need with the stuff out of the Wonder Trunk, if you will, like Dora the Explorer's backpack. It's like, oh, what's inside? And it's like, oh, look, everything you possibly need. Here you go.
Yeah.
Just remember, kids, if anybody ever gives you the stuff, though, give it back or replace it.
Yeah, no swiping.
I've had people be like, oh, I really need a blanket to do some moving. Here you go. And then I just didn't see it for 3 years. And I'm like,
hey,
mint.
buddy, where's that blanket? Remember that blanket?
Yeah. It's, it's a $20 blanket off of Amazon, Walmart, whatever. It doesn't matter. But, it's all about building goodwill with the people that you help.
Man.
Mutual assistance is a big thing that I want to preach today.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, so you brought up the storms. Like, we literally live like 10 minutes away from each other. And yeah, man, the storms have been crazy. And you were kind of telling me earlier in the fall, you're like, bro, like you might want to have something just in case we like, if there's any kind of bad storm and you run out of food and you can't drive for like a couple of days, like you don't want to sit there and be hungry. Like, so have it. So it's like, yeah, it's great to think about that. And I want to ask you, because I think most people, we're going to get into the stigma of prepping and all that. But I want to start practical first, because if anyone is tuning in and, I'm oddly enough, I'm probably going to title this, well, not oddly enough, more like, obviously, I'm going to have some kind of prepping title on this episode. So that if anyone is like interested in that, they can be like, wow, well, this might be cool. So let's talk about food. Now, you gave me a prepackaged meal kit, which is not always going to be available. In fact, when we were discussing this, this was like around the Delta variant Omicron timeline. There was not a lot available, especially if you want to order online, they're all out of stock. So for people who want to like do a do-it-yourself kit, where would you start? Because you have a great pantry. I've seen your stash basically. So how would you help people get started if they were wondering?
So not only the storms are causing the issue that we're talking about in terms of a lack of food stability or food security, I think is the proper term nowadays. There's conflict in other places that are growing regions, right? We all know about all that. There's 50% of the United States is currently in drought, like the landmass. I thought it was just a couple of the biggest states out west, but it's even further, like past the Rockies now, that all of those places are now considered a state of drought. So any domestic agricultural product that we're talking about out of the United States is now being diminished. And it's happening in Western Canada as well, along the border area. So, at my job, I work in a produce department, and people talk about, why don't you have organic this, or like, oh, you don't have these mangoes, or oh, where are the pears? And without being condescending or trying to grab somebody by their shoulders and shake them, it's hard for me, because I listen to all the stuff, right? That's why I don't sleep at night. I listen to all the stuff that's happening, and I try to boil it down for conversations with people that I care about and I give all the fucks about, to be like, hey, remember that heart medication that you need? Maybe get it now. Like get your refill prematurely if your doctor will let you, or whatever you need. Just have extra stuff on hand, because the whole toilet paper fiasco, that's going to happen again, but it's going to be for more items than before. And it's because of our relationships with other places. It's because of poor hiring practices right now. Because people are like, well, we took a big hit during the pandemic, so we can't afford to hire the extra help right now. We got to work our way up to that. And it's like, okay, well, now the packages aren't going out the way they should. And like, that's why the supply is the price for these kits that you're talking about has gone way up. The bucket I gave you was at a certain price, and now I'm sure it's at least $50 over that.
Man.
You can find it in the first place. So if we're talking about starting, You
Mhm.
want to consider what's easy and cheap in your area.
And let's say this too, like let's say it's just one person trying to plan for their own survival, not necessarily like a family of four, but like kind of what you were doing, that's just like one person planning for their own survival.
Right. So you want to consider like shelf life is great.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good like quality foods that have your good macronutrients, right? Your proteins, your carbs, and your fiber and whatnot that will last a long time. But you have to remember, you have to eat it.
Mhm.
So as long as as much as you want to be like, well, this is this many calories and this much protein, and I've got my vitamins to supplement, I should be fine. You have to consider you're going to be willing to eat all of this. You're
Right.
going to be willing. You're not going to get tired of it. So variety is the spice of life, as many people say. That's something that I like to live by, except for my dating life, but that's neither here nor there. So
Different show.
insert drum fill here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as much as you would like to think like, oh yeah, man, sardines, man, 20 years or like,
I want to try them
7 years,
first. Yeah.
7 year shelf life. I picked certain things to make sure that I would eat them. And they also, so that I can, diversify a little bit throughout a week in the end of the world as we know it.
Yeah, you
the
put some kind of apocalypse
whatever
menu together.
the
Yeah.
end times, whatever, exactly.
Yeah.
So, salmon, chicken, different kinds of carbs, some good dried fruit or whatever, if you can find it.
Mm.
The danger of the long-term food storage stuff of any kind is the sodium content. Now, high cholesterol and high blood pressure runs in my family. So higher sodium content is not going to help me.
Mm-mm.
I plan on supplementing with wild game and fish and whatnot if things are that bad.
Mm.
I can't tell you what is going to happen because I'm not Nostradamus. I'm just not that person. What I can tell you is that things are going to get very expensive, even more so than we already have. I saw diesel in Newtown for like $6.20 something.
Oh, damn.
I don't drive a diesel anything, but any fuel that costs $6 in Connecticut all of a sudden like is a slap to my face.
I'm glad I don't anymore.
Like,
yeah, man.
Exactly. We're up over $4 again, or we're going to be in the very near future. So, we have to consider these things. Everything comes on a truck. If the truck fuel goes up, the cost of transporting things goes up. So what I've tried to do is balance not only canned proteins, because you have to worry about storing them properly, making sure they're not damaged, making sure they're sealed, and keeping track of expiration dates. Expiration dates for food and meds for in the context of this conversation, long-term storage, you can push those a bit, depending upon the item. You can
They're more of a
bit.
suggestion and like a marketing tactic than
Exactly.
safety.
So like eggs, like I will eat eggs well past because they're sitting in my fridge and they're not broken. Nothing's changed.
And you can smell them, right? It's like if something's off, you'd probably figure it out pretty quickly.
Exactly. So keep that in mind. I've got, let me see, I did a bunch of pastas. I did rice dishes, but I'm going to spread out the rice dishes because there's a lot of salt in them. It's like the flavored Knorr's sides. I've got a few of those. Those are really good. And it's like 10 minutes in a pot with water. Super simple.
Nice.
Simple is good too. If you're demoralized because you look out the window and there's a bunch of crap going on outside, you need to, like, I have it in my notes here. One of the most important forgotten prepping principles is trying to remember about leisure time and rest.
Yeah.
And not getting beaten down by the nonsense. Because
your sanity.
Exactly. We've been in the situation since 2020. Like, if you look at it in a certain way, are there like Russian tanks going down the street? No, there's not. Was there an EMP where like if there was, we wouldn't be doing this right now. Like, we're in more or less normal times, but we've had a lot of weird stuff happen. We all know we've had a lot of weird stuff happen. Some of it had to do with the government. Some of it had to do with society and how we treat each other.
Yep.
We're in the crap situation already.
Oh yeah.
So the fuel cost, just because we can still drive our cars and go to work and feed our families, doesn't mean we're not in the shit situation. Think about 5 years ago. Remember how great that was?
Hard to remember
Remember how
sometimes, but yeah.
Remember how we don't? Yeah, none of this was a thing. We were trying to wrap up the war in the Middle East, but there was no crazy shit going on. No one was pointing nukes at anybody. It was a great time.
It was
And
mostly
now we're
memes.
here. It was mostly memes, and I still live for the memes.
There's
I have
still a lot of
folder.
memes, yeah, especially this last few
Exactly.
weeks.
There's honestly, the meme game, as the situation has increased, the meme game
Yep.
has equally increased.
Memes are the new history textbooks, I'd like to say. You know, or like we could rewrite history textbooks using memes to really give like an accurate picture of what was going on culturally.
Man, I can't wait for it because, like, both Trump and Biden have given us plenty of gems in terms of facial features, hairstyles, flies, and bird poop being on people. Like, so many great templates have been made. Hillary Clinton being fat on the beach. It's great. I've seen so many. But you're right. The history books for the next 10 years that will be written are going to be absolutely amazing.
And
but
to
I'm
your
sorry, I
point
wanted to...
that like 5 years ago, we were in a much different situation, and I'm not gonna I wouldn't propose that we should be like hopeless because things have changed so much, but it's like something that everyone should be aware of, that just because, like you said, just because there aren't Russian tanks or there's not like nuclear fallout somewhere, that it's not like things haven't changed, because obviously things have changed and we're in like the roaring 20s. So it's like not to panic anyone, but yeah, it's like, all right, well, if you haven't figured out that things are moving at a very rapid pace now, then like, it's when are you gonna wake up?
There's a lot of people that are, I hear the term normalcy bias being thrown around a lot. And I want to say that's like the clearest way I would put it is normalcy bias.
Yeah.
We spent 2-ish years with little duct tape X's on the floor of where to stand, and plexiglass or real glass everywhere, and arguments about what to put on your face or what not to put on your face, or who's an idiot, and all these things. That was the norm. And now I'm willing to go back to 2018 and go do the thing. Other people are like, no, it's here to no, this is the new normal. And I'm like, don't say that, please. Please don't use that term. I don't care if it has to do with something positive. The new normal is a term that's being used by people that should not be trusted, as far as I'm talking
they've probably been traumatized too. That their new normal
it's kind of a gaslighting, kind of beat you over the head kind of terminology. I don't like it. It's like, oh, well, this is like one of the Australian prime ministers from one of the provinces said like, oh, this is the new world order, guys, blah, blah, blah. And all the people in my community went like, she said the thing. She said it. And everyone's like putting on their plate carriers and stuff. I'm like, wait. I think that was the wrong term for her to use, whatever. Yeah. Like, people, how can I put this? COVID and the whole situation that it caused, I got to like June of 2020, and then I started to take off all my stuff, and I'm like, nah, we're good. Never mind. False alarm, everybody. Yeah. Because I saw firsthand in a crowded building and whatnot, how many people were getting sick, and anybody in my life that got sick that is not healthy, and what they went through and all these things. And I realized, like, this is not the world-ending thing that we were led to believe it was. And because of that, a lot of people freaked out and panic bought things. And panic buying leads to real shortages. It might be fake panic, but it's still a real shortage if all the shit gets bought. The toilet paper was the luckiest thing for that to happen to. Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. I saw certain weeks or months where, in the past 2 years, not recently, but in the past 2 years, all the rice and beans were gone. And no, it wasn't Cinco de Mayo. No. Exactly. Rice and beans were gone. The food storage buckets that we had at work were gone. Certain medications were gone. Like, people kind of woke up in a late stage kind of thing. Right. And you don't want to be in the panic buying. Those 2 weeks, or maybe even less than 1 week in your area, when there's still stuff on the shelves before things like stop working, like trucks stop going places, there's no resupply happening. You don't want to be in a position where you need to be those people going out for everything in the house. Like, oh shit, we're out of half of the things that we need.
Yeah.
And that's, food or dry goods doesn't matter. You don't want to be in that position. And that's what I really want to talk about today is just getting the basics covered in advance to a reasonable extent. You don't have to be 5 years in advance with all of your stuff. It's unrealistic for
just take a little responsibility.
Exactly. For like an individual, it's unrealistic. Now, if you have a house big enough for a family of 4 and property and animals to consider, then that's a different story. And you might want to think of the long-term strategy and buy in bulk the way that I don't have to, or you don't have to.
Makes perfect sense, man. And there's something I want to touch on. So we were getting into the principles, and one of them was about your sanity. Obviously, staying hydrated is like something that you brought up when you have water in the car, because once you're dehydrated, you're not going to make decisions clearly, and any cognitive function is just going to go out the shitter. So when you think about other principles, I also want you to consider, and I would like to hear you speak on this, some of the stigmas and where you think they came from, why they are a thing. Like when people say prepper, they automatically probably think of like a Nazi or, someone who's like, to not be trusted. But like, the fact is, like, if I met someone who describes themselves as a prepper, I'd be like, man, I need to become friends with this dude because he knows his shit. And so, yeah, where do you think the stigma comes from? And why, how do you like deal with that when you're doing this?
I've had conversations with people where I bring this up. I'm a pretty open book kind of person.
Yeah.
A lot of preppers try to keep a strict OPSEC in mind, and OPSEC meaning operational security. They try to be like, I don't own anything. I don't know anything. I'm just some dude. Yeah. This is also known as the gray man principle, or the gray man concept, where you dress low profile. Everything you have is low profile. Your car, your house, everything is neutral. That's so smart. That people aren't like, that guy's rich as fuck, I'm going to take all his stuff. Or this guy has food, gardening, livestock, guns, ammo, all these things, a pharmacy in his basement, whatever. I like, because of where I live and the people that I know, and the people that I choose to talk to about this whole lifestyle of mine, this hobby that became way more practical in the past 2 years. Because I haven't been doing this for 3 years. I've been doing this for a while, but I got super serious in terms of the food and other things. I got super serious about it within the past 3 years because of everything that's been happening.
Right.
So these stigma, like, your audience, I'm sure at least half of them have seen this show on History Channel called Doomsday Preppers.
Yep.
And on this show, they showed this family. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's a family of 6 or so. And it's different walks of life, which I appreciate about the show. It's not the typical Caucasian male, conservative, not even conservative, like anarchists, like leave me alone. I do what I want.
Tinfoil hats.
Don't tinfoil hat. Don't take my gun. Maybe landmines on the property. Maybe. Lots of dogs. Not a whole lot of women in his life. Machine guns, body armor.
It's like Florida man or Texas man.
Listen, like, we can't even pin it to a state because there's a good 30 states that have a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Like, I want to move to South Dakota. Pretty sure there's some in South Dakota.
Badlands,
West Virginia,
man.
You betcha. Yes, and that's what I mean by the Badlands. It's like whatever's left. I want to be a resident. I didn't say the king.
Right.
Because I'm not a leadership kind of person. I believe in cooperation to an extent, not communism, but
yeah, no, I totally catch your drift. And by the way, for anyone wondering, Mike has a badass "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and it's right in the background. I've got the bumper sticker on my car, and
I saw that.
Going off of to go off of that point about the stigma and perhaps like where it comes from or what you do about it, and these other principles that you live by, either as a prepper or just someone who is just researching or is aware of what's going on. What does that flag mean to you, and that awesome epic symbol?
This flag is the Gadsden flag, or the Gadsden rag as it's known, and it's very, very old. I want to say it's from the Revolutionary War, not the Civil War.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I have that right. And I want to say it was either Tennessee or North Carolina that came up with it, but I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. And don't tread on me. It's got a snake that's coiled up. It's a rattlesnake that are very obviously common in America, all the way from Texas, all the way to here in Connecticut. We have rattlers too. And it's all about just, it goes back to those libertarian kind of values of, hey, let me make my money. Let me raise my family. Let me have my property and secure my property. Let me defend my property and myself and my family. And let me preserve my family as best I can. And preserving your family has to do with all sorts of things. I feel like a lot of preppers worry about they'll pick one or two sections of emergency preparedness,
right?
And they will focus hard on that. And like certain parts of it are sexy and appealing to like, oh, that's so cool, you know what I mean? And you get into like the gear part of it and you focus on that, and then you end up leaving things by the wayside. And I feel like a very important tenet is to cover your bases as best you can. Cover your bases. So like, you don't want to be the person that has like, dude, I have 3 50-gallon drums full of 9mm bullets. That's me. I got ammo for days. Like, you don't even got to worry about it. I'm going to be here shooting at somebody all day, every day. And it's like, that's great. What's your food storage like? And he goes, I got a couple of cans of beans and I just rob people. It's like, yeah, don't be that guy.
They're like, who needs food when you got all those bullets?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I take other people's food. And that's for some people in the community, they're not the passing on the knowledge type, obviously, because it's like, if your plan is to steal other people's stuff, why would you go out onto YouTube or Spotify or whatever and just be like, so this is what I'm going to do. There's my neighbor, Jerry. Jerry's got a lot of nice stuff. Like, nobody does that. You want to be the community type of guy. And that's one of the other points on the forgotten principles that I wanted to touch on is the community collaboration. You got to make alliances, and like a common acronym for this is MAGs, mutual assistance groups.
Yeah.
So like, I have a contact list in my phone and written down on paper with people in my life that have different skill sets and assets that I'm going to call upon when things get further south than they are. Because right now, there's not a whole lot of reason, unless you're in a rural neighborhood and you make less money.
Things aren't very spicy. Yeah.
Things aren't
thankfully
there yet. Hopefully we can come together a little bit and realize the real issues, as opposed to the nitpicking social war stuff, or sorry, what do you call it? Culture war,
the social engineering and all that. Yeah,
exactly. So like, I have people down the street from me that I see with successful gardens with vegetables. Nice. I see people with chickens. I see people with livestock and farms where I could hunt deer very successfully. I have friends where in the town that I work that have chickens. I know people with medical skills, with carpentry skills, with more security assets, dogs to have around for security asset, all these things. And checking up on people and being aware of what other people need is an important part, because bartering is going to come back in style very soon. Like, NFTs are cool, but we all know like what you can use those for if things get any worse. Like, we all know the inflation rate is worse than what it was in the 80s. If milk hits $10, you can figure out in your own mind what everything else is going to look like. If there's any of you that are diabetics or have high blood pressure and need pills, these things are in a delicate infrastructure right now. Yeah. Unfortunately, some of those medications and stuff, the prescription stuff, comes from China, which, as you know, that pipeline can get cut off pretty quick if they decide, hey, we're going to take Taiwan and then declare war, which has been talked about for a few years, sure. But now that attentions are being focused in other places, I think the big bad guys are going to take advantage of that, and things could snowball and roll downhill for us here at home. There's a lot of big things that can happen.
Right.
And we can't, like in that show I was describing earlier,
Doomsday
a lot of these guys, they would pick doomsday preppers, exactly. A lot of these guys would pick a specific thing, and they were determined and very certain
So it's
that
not
this
very
is the
balanced.
problem.
Yeah.
They weren't balanced. This is the problem that they're worried about. One of them was the super pandemic. And so this guy had Mira safety gas masks and full hazmat suits for him and his family.
Right.
And all the hand sanitizer, the gloves, the masks. He was really worried about a super bug that would come from China. This is hilarious because this is like 7 or 8 years ago. He was talking about this, and I'm like, wow, look at you.
Way to go, man.
Who do you work for? Yeah, what's your plug?
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Anyway, he was focused on that. Another guy was focused on the Yosemite supervolcano, which is another good one.
Yeah.
San Andreas Fault, big earthquake in California. That makes sense. What else? Some people were worried about government shutdown and like civil unrest because something happens where the erosion of trust just like absolutely causes the U.S. government to have a lot of infighting. Oh, gee, where did he get that idea? And look at what we have now, and sure, like Connecticut and other places are like, it's business as usual so far. But like, I really feel like there's going to be a day where like the mailman isn't going on anymore. And like the whole taxes thing, it's like, that's gonna kind of fall apart because it's going to get so chaotic from
it's a good
other
reminder.
bigger issues.
Yeah, man.
Right. So self-sufficiency and self-reliance is really what we got to focus on. And I don't care if you haven't thought about this at all and you're kind of skeptical, or if you've started on this journey, like there's enough scenarios that can happen right now. And things are starting to push towards a certain direction when it comes to the stability of our country. And because of all this, I really feel like it would behoove all of us, whether you're in your 20s and you're figuring stuff out, you're out of the house, or you still live with your parents and you keep you have to keep your family in mind. We have time to figure things out and try to get the ball rolling on not just, stacking food and water to the ceiling, because that's only part of it.
It's only part.
But also broadening your skill set and your awareness of the issues around you. I feel like all of those things are a good place to start. And like, I wrote down some like basic stuff to cover. Do you want to hear those?
Let's get into it. I just want to ask you really quick, because you brought up stability and the fact that you have to have a community, because that's part of the stigma of a prepper is like they're dug in like deep down in a bunker and they're cut off from everyone else. And they're probably like in total isolation. But the fact is, and it's funny that you brought that up, because I was walking around the block before we got on this podcast, and you've done that loop with me. Like I was just walking, just relaxing, clearing my mind after a stressful day at the office, and I talked to my neighbor really quick, who I don't know her name. She actually said hello to us last time we walked around that same block. Older woman, probably in her 80s or maybe even 90s. And I just said hello to her. And by the end of that 5-minute conversation, she offered me a job to help her do some landscaping. And it's like, all I had to do is just say hello. Like, I wasn't looking for a job, let me say that. But she's like, well, I mean, if you ever want to like make a little extra money and do some yard work, great. Okay. Like, help your neighbors out. Like, that's a great principle. I'm so happy that you brought that up. And it's all about who or like what kinds of valuable, either it's your time or your treasure or your talent. And it's great to consider, yes, stacking food and water is important, but like, there's so many other bases to cover, as you said. So let's get into the list that you've got here. What else can you offer to us?
All right. So some general scenarios. There's 2 lists I got here. There's some general scenarios that I think they're more normal than the the Walking Dead or the San Andreas Fault earthquake. They're more normal and more likely to happen, and it's good for anybody to prepare for these kind of things. So here we go. So natural disasters, any kind of weather. We got mudslides. We got drought. That counts, I suppose. And earthquakes, it doesn't really apply to us over here, thank God, because the hurricanes and snowstorms we get on a regular basis are enough. Earthquakes, I don't even want to think about. What else we got here? So civil unrest, and civil unrest can happen for a lot of different reasons. Most recently, it's been a lot of culture war stuff that's happened in our country. And, I'm not really a fan of any causes that use political violence in the 2020s.
Right.
Like, everyone's like, oh, don't worry, guys. This happened in the 60s. I'm like, so history is repeating itself and you're happy about that? That makes you comfortable?
The 60s
That's
were very
interesting. Tell me more.
romanticized. Yeah.
Right. And they're like, oh, they were bombing post offices all the time back in the 70s. And I'm like, and everyone was terrified and it was a bad time.
Yeah.
Let's not do that again. So, like, as much as I love the idea of, like, having Molotovs ready to go for, like, special party occasions, there's no belief that I have, or no cause that I support, where in these circumstances I'm willing to go out and do violence. So I really don't get why so many people our age are going out and doing that. Might have to do with a lack of fulfillment in life. Might
The
have
music
to do
they're
with
listening to.
Oh, the damn rap music these days.
Oh.
I don't know. I
A lot of
listen to a lot of,
influences.
like, angry metal stuff, and I don't go out and do this
Interesting.
stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know.
man. Yeah, it's.
Of course, I listen to Five Finger Death Punch, and I haven't joined the military yet. So,
But let
there's
me
that
ask you
too.
this, because, like, despite whatever influences you might get, like, I know that you really love Timcast, and, like, I used to watch Timcast every night, and I had to stop because I was getting a little drained. And I'm curious, like, despite all that you've learned and all you've come to prepare for, how have you maintained this? Because, like, I know you personally. I know that I can count on you and that we are in this together. I know that for a
Absolutely.
fact. Since 2020, I've known that, like, it's clear as day, and I'm very thankful for you. But I'm curious, if you reflect on your own personal life, how have you maintained your moral compass despite all this chaos going on around us?
I've tried to keep in mind what I mentioned before, is that I have an understanding of the political turmoil from yesteryear that we've had. From the different decades we've had different big things happen. Like, there was the war on terror was a big thing, and we started to have this security state. People protested against that. We started to ban people from certain countries, or ban burqas or turbans for a little bit. And we did that in the UK as well, and everyone got up in arms about it. And justifiably so. I get it, but I don't want to be a person that knows history and understands what happened, and we just blindly go forward and continue with the same traps.
Yeah.
I do not want to be that person. As a person who pays attention, I don't want to fall into these. Well, it doesn't. Of course, we're going to do it. We did it back in the day. Like I'm a big fan of, like, Martin Luther King for reasons, right?
Yeah.
Passiveness and peaceful demonstrations,
Definitely.
and sit-ins, and just sitting down in the middle of the road. And guess what? You still get to be arrested. You still get to stick it to the man.
Yep.
You still get to, oh, there's too many people in here. Oh, we got to let them all go because they're all
Less collateral
nonviolent
damage.
offenders.
Yeah.
It still works. It still works, instead of just harming the communities that we're supposed to stand up for,
Right.
like we see from other causes. We're not going to get into specifics, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. I don't think that any of that helps. And as much as I'm into, self-preservation, self-defense, that flag goes with the Second Amendment community.
Oh, yeah.
Just as much as it does with the revolutionary community, right? And that's the group that I belong to. But at the same time, under these circumstances, we're still in normal mode. People are trying to stoke the flames of, like, real, like, second Civil War Part 2 on certain issues right now.
Right.
And I'm like, shut up, just stop.
Yeah.
None of us have fought for a long time. There's a few veterans in our age group, sure, but most of them are either still in, or they are disinterested.
Yeah.
Because they've seen the shit, and now they're at home and they're chilling out. They're not about that life. There's a lot of people stoking these flames that are completely separated from anybody that knows about conflict.
Right.
I've only had a limited amount of conflict in my life, but I feel like the people that are willing to go out and do that kind of stuff right now are people that are mostly privileged, because, like, It's privileged to be able to go do that, and the police don't shoot you everywhere else in the world.
Yeah, man. I
Like,
mean, we
that's
have
pretty much like, if you go do that in Russia, go do what you did,
right,
you know, in
right.
LA or Chicago,
Or try
whatever.
tweeting it out in China. You know, you're not gonna be able to do that.
Like, try to be in one of those causes that have been really active in the past 5 years. Try to go do that in any other country. Even Canada, we learned, we'll go arrest some people, pepper spray some people, put on the stormtrooper outfits and go beat on you from a horse.
Yeah,
they'll go do that. And I'm not a fan of the riot police coming out for no reason, but I'm also not a fan of people getting mad at the riot police when you show up in motorcycle helmets, body armor, and gas masks, and the cops are like equally equipped, and you're like, see,
but
fascist.
Mike, they have unacceptable views. Their views are unacceptable, Mike.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, I'm the son of 2 retired police officers, so like I understand why the response from police departments is what it is, and I understand that a lot of people don't realize this. Like, I had to come to the realization that there is political games involved in the response. So when we see an entire downtown area burned down and wrecked, like in the past 3 years, and we see the police hanging out for like most of that night and not doing anything, it's because they were told to sit on their hands.
Yep.
Because they can't afford lawsuits. I would prefer to see them doing stuff so that, because listen, arson is arson. Like, lighting buildings on fire that may or may not have people in them. If anybody on the right did that, and they don't really do it, if anybody on the right did that, I would be really upset, because it's like, if you want to fight people, that's one level of issue that I have. Yeah. If you're trying to burn down property that could collapse onto somebody, that's a whole other problem, and it's still murder. Congratulations.
Right.
So like, I want to see a calming down of these things. That's the overall message I'm trying to get at here, is that you're not going to see me out there, because I want to see a de-escalation and the actual healing and unity that this guy talks about. I want to see some real healing and unity, instead of, we're going to say healing and unity within the first 2 months, and then we're going to still do all the name calling and use the terms Trumpism, white supremacy, white nationalism, Nazi,
even conspiracy theorists. And let me say for everyone, you know, Mike is wearing this badass "Let's Go Brandon" hat, and I want to tell you a quick story about that, because I gave my friend for his birthday a "Let's Go Brandon" bumper sticker. He moved to Dallas, Texas in 2021 to escape certain medical mandates, and he had to take his sticker off his car because his coworkers were like kind of harassing him about it. And I feel terrible, because I'm like, man, like, he really wanted to have that sticker on his car. And I'm not saying that he caved, but like, there's almost a degree of social pressure that no matter what your views are, it's like, once your paycheck is compromised, it's really hard to stick to your guns unless you have a plan B, which most people don't. But the fact is, and the fact that I love this conversation so much, is that you're someone with a plan B, and you've been showing us a lot of things that will help people feel that sense of ease and calm, you know, if they have to survive a quote unquote dark winter. And I'm curious, you know, you brought up your parents, who I love very much, and it's pretty badass, all the things that they've taught you from their experience as police officers. And I'm curious, when you think back to growing up and having these influences and starting to learn more and more about, as Jordan Peterson says, how to take responsibility, man. How have you, what has guided you to become self-sufficient? I mean, can you think about like certain experiences or certain memories that come up when you think about learning to take life seriously and to try your best to make this existence a little better? Like, what comes up for you?
So my early days, right? I told you my parents are retired cops. It was my mother, my father, and my stepfather, and then even an uncle here in Connecticut, all within the same police force. And my stepfather had a bigger influence on me in terms of my hobbies than my dad did, and that's just how it worked out. I had a 50-50 custody split, where I would do a week with one person, a week with another, and that was my life since like 2003 or so. So most of my life, I had split custody between my parents. My stepfather is a outdoorsman, a hunting and fishing kind of person, a camping person, that kind of thing. I learned a lot of the basic stuff in those areas from him. And that's, those kind of skills are survival skills, and it applies to prepping a little bit, but that's only when you're like that's when you're doing the bug out situation that people I'm sure have heard about, where you have a backpack of probably a pretty big size, and that is your life on your back, and you go and you do the thing out in Mother Nature. Not ideal. Not ideal. A lot of people, just like in the podcast that Jake mentioned earlier, that we both like quite a bit, there's a certain talking point that comes up a lot, which is get out of the cities, man. The cities, get out of the cities. Everyone's like, do not live there, like, because these food shortages become very apparent when you live in a Chicago or a New York City or even a Bridgeport or a Hartford. It's like, oh, population density cleans out a Stop and Shop. I had no idea. And then all of a sudden there's nothing to go around. And like, I'm not really a big fan of like eating domesticated pets. Like that's not my jam.
And you're right. Chaos seems to collect in these dense areas. And if you can spread out a bit, you'll be much happier.
Right. So all these problems are magnified by population density. So natural disaster, if there's blockages of roads or property damage, that's going to be even more when there's more property tightly packed together. Sickness going around, like contagion, like a significant bug. Obviously, New York City and LA had the worst numbers, regardless of any measures that they took. Yeah. Some of which were overbearing, but whatever.
That's true.
Exactly. Civil unrest, same thing. It's going to be multiplied several times in a small area. It's like, where are we going to go? Well, the police are over there, and the black bloc guys are over there, and both of them are going to kick the shit out of me and rob me. Well, sorry, the cops probably won't rob you, but probably
there's just fees. There's like always hidden fees,
yeah. Exactly. There's the court fees and So it's a bad time going in those places. I always tell people I like tall trees, not tall buildings. New York City was great to visit, and now it's not because of crime and other things that have happened, and passports and all these things. So I don't go there. I don't hang out there. The big thing is to find community whatever your situation is. If you're in a city and you're not going to move because of family life, because of significant employment, as Jake said earlier, and you need to stay where you're at. New York City is a tough sell for me. There's other cities that are less packed, that are still cities that you can make it happen, but like, the person to your left, the person to your right, and the person across the hall, we all need to be better about having a connection, whether it's family or not.
Yeah.
In those tight packed situations, we need to have a sense of community and understanding. And and it's going to be really unfortunate sometimes when like you hate each other because of silly things like sports teams or
goddamn sports ball. I was getting people worked up.
Sports ball people's. I don't care anymore because a lot of those organized sports here got like politicized on certain issues.
Basically,
and
Hollywood.
And Hollywood too. It's like, you guys make too much money to complain about Save the Whales. Like, please shut up. It's never Save the Whales, but it's always something. It's like, oh, immigration
it's a great
law.
equivalent.
Like, shut up. You don't know. Like, who's your housekeeper? Exactly. So shut up. It's community is super important. And it has to do with it, not only for your sanity, so that when you're struggling to get your ducks in a row and have enough as things go up in price and go down in availability, right? You don't want to be struggling to get along with the people that are so close to you. You need to talk to each other. You need to be able to help each other, because that's all you have. And one of the points that we haven't really touched on is, oh my God, like FEMA and other big government is not going to save you. It's just not. There's big documents, like as thick as this book I have here, right? There's big documents that are plans already laid out by the US government, and they involve, okay, we're going to help 15% of people.
Wow. Okay.
And then everybody else, like, good luck.
Yeah.
So,
it's like Noah's Ark can only fit one of each, two of each animal. It can't fit all of them.
Pick a video game. Pick a video game that's dystopian, right? We got these walled cities in The Last of Us, one of my favorite games, by the way.
Nice.
I took notes. I learned a lot.
It's very cinematic too.
Exactly. Oh my God. It's like being in a movie. It's a great game. And they're making HBO is making a show.
Bro, there's a lot of cool video game TV show adaptations. Like, just to do a quick rant about this, like we've got Assassin's Creed. I think Far Cry is getting its own show. We've got I'm just gonna stop there. The Witcher, that's been good so far. Yeah, man. But so you were saying The Last of Us, you said you were taking notes while you're playing the game, and was there something?
I was being funny. Being funny. Yeah. But like, I've gotten some ideas from The Walking Dead, though. I will say that.
Yeah, man.
There's been some good like arts and crafts stuff. Like you see like the solar setup or the radio, like haphazardly connecting old like satellite dishes to make radios, or like
homesteading, man.
Yeah, like like his own gunpowder, for God's sake. Like there were some good ideas in that show. I do reloading myself. I just picked it up because of shortages that were caused by the old saying goes, like, Democrats are the best gun salesmen, because they always talk about making everything illegal. So while they're on the campaign trail and they talk about all the stuff, everyone's like, it's going to be illegal in 6 months. I have to go buy all the things. And then they go, and then, oh, look at that. We had the most sales numbers for firearms in the United States in
why.
Yeah, that was in 2020, and it was like 28 million or 31 million. Yeah, damn. I was in there. I helped. I put in some numbers.
Pays his taxes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I can't wait for those ideas to come around where we're going to tax people on individual pieces or whatever. But like I said, vote. That's why you have to go somewhere where your values are maintained.
Yeah.
So Jake's going to Texas. I'm going to wherever. I haven't decided yet because I'm working on some financial stability first, but I don't want to live in Connecticut like 3 years from now. Absolutely not. Too many taxes.
I'd say we were very blessed to grow up here, and I'm happy that our parents decided, hey, let's go live in Connecticut. My parents grew up here too, but like the fact that like we are now kind of waking up to this, because there's a stigma. I've been talking about stigmas a lot today, but I know it's like the Texas man and the Florida man, like they get a bad rap a lot. And it's because it seems to be a political issue. It's like, well, let's inform the residents of New England that these southern states, they're bad. You don't want to go over there. Florida, bad. Texas, bad. It's like that rhetoric has definitely infected me for quite a while. And now I'm kind of realizing, thank fucking God for COVID. It's like, wow, okay, things don't have to be this particular way. You have a DeSantis, you have an Abbott, you have these other people who are like, all right, well, you may say that this is what we should do, but here's what I think we should do. And that's why there's 50 states and not one state. And I think that's a beautiful thing, man.
People seem to be forgetting that because they're, depending upon the issue, it's, oh my God, I can't believe the federal government did that. Or these days, for the party that's in power, it's, why isn't the federal government cracking down on this? I can't believe that
government me harder, daddy.
I'm like what? It's people don't understand how the system is supposed to work. Yeah. We've gotten federalized like hardcore on a lot of things, and it seems like, oh, that's the best way to do it, until we have like egotistical people that have wanted the seat for so long. Somebody that might have, like 42 years of experience in the Senate or something. I don't know. Nobody's specific, but no one comes to mind. No one important that comes to mind. So when we have these people that are like clearly just egotists that want to get in for the sake of having power, and you might be able to say that about 45 too, honestly, but the difference being that one person wasn't talking about being president all of his life, and the other person was successful for other reasons. Instead of just, I'm a swamp creature.
Yeah, it's good to remember that no one's clean either way. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. I climbed the ladder and did all the things, and like everyone hates career politicians. Who did we get? A very, very career
You know what
politician.
that reminds me of too? It's like, yeah, like whether you're on the left or on the right, like like the 7 degrees of the 7 degrees of separation, like of Kevin Bacon or whoever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
these days, it's like, well, there's a photo of you with Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein, and it's like, all right, like no one's innocent. I mean, like even the people who you think are helping you might not be. And I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but
It
speaking of
really is.
that, you brought up a couple podcasts. Like we talked about Jordan Peterson, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan. I know you mentioned something that Jack Posobiec says a lot, which is get out of the cities. So
Yep.
when you
Oh
think
man, love that
about
guy.
yeah, when you think about this pilgrimage to the Badlands, you know, what comes up for you? Because that's it's a huge decision to make. And you mentioned earlier, like, yeah, I'm looking towards Dallas, where some of my friends have relocated to get away from those mandates, like I talked about. But when you think about that relocation and translating yourself into a different culture, what do you think about doing that? It's a pretty big decision.
I've been a black sheep kind of person for a while. I have a more open-minded sense of humor than most people. Like I'm okay with like Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, and Joe
Yeah.
Rogan and anything
They're heroes.
that they've had to say. Anything. I don't care. Like Dave Chappelle got like tackled on stage a couple nights
man.
ago, right?
Yeah, very
And
recently.
he immediately said it was a trans woman or trans man that did that. Like he immediately made a joke. And then Chris Rock right next to him said, I think that was Will Smith. That's just hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow.
He said it 5 seconds after like coming to Dave to like
Yeah.
protect, to like shield
There's
him.
like a photo
He
of
took
this
the
whole
mic and said, I think
scuffle.
that was
Yeah.
Will Smith.
Yeah.
The shit was hilarious.
It's a great
So,
full
like,
circle joke right there.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't mind dropping myself into a new environment and just being myself and going from there. And it's like if I have like this up in my yard and I go to South Dakota, people are gonna be like, all right,
Nice.
I'll allow it.
Hello,
Yeah,
neighbor.
like no one's gonna have I'm not gonna drop myself. I'm gonna go to like, Colorado and go do that. Like that's not gonna work for me.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of the California transplants. Like there's gonna be a culture shock where they're like, you have guns? And I'm like, you're Colorado, you used to, until about 10 years ago. But so I plan on going somewhere where I'm not going to have a hard time. And I agree with you that where we grew up, we had these messages told to us about other places.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, well, these guys, all they do is fly, the stars and bars Confederate flag, and they're all white supremacists. I'm just like, yes, everybody in Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, every single one of them has not given up the Confederate lifestyle. I'm sure you're right. Oh, wait, no, you're not. Why is country music like everybody goes to country music, right?
Yeah.
Black and white people go to country music. Darius Rucker is very successful. Lots of white unity. People that I know love Darius Rucker.
Hell yeah.
There you go. So I've spent time in Virginia, in the middle of nowhere, not DC or Virginia Beach, in the middle of nowhere, and everyone's nice. I'm tan in the summer. My father's Hispanic. So like I'm sensitive to actual real racism.
Right.
Not like I don't like immigrants doing certain things because tax dollars. That's not racism. That's xenophobia a little bit, but you get my point.
Yeah.
There's what we have now, and then there's like actual racism. What we have now is people not getting along because of cultural differences, and we all call it racism. It's like, I didn't say he was a lesser human being. I'm Catholic, he's Muslim. I don't treat my wife like property. He kind of does. Yeah. It's cultural differences that are causing this issue.
Yeah.
And I learn languages as a hobby. Arabic, Polish, Russian, Spanish, different stuff for fun, because I like meeting everybody. So if I go to a place that's even more conservative than I am, and they have less like compromises with culture than I do, because I make compromises.
Of course.
But if I go to someplace, I'm gonna, try to embrace what's going on there as best I can.
Yeah.
But maintain myself, my own, my own path without being derailed too much, and just try to live life as best I can. Like my family has gotten so fragmented here in Connecticut with, the family gatherings getting smaller and smaller, people focusing on their smaller unit instead of the, grandparents and all the aunts and uncles. Now it's just grandparents and my parents.
It's like
and that's
hyper
the
localized. Yeah.
Right. Like I don't see everybody that I used to see. I can't even get a text back anymore from some people. And it doesn't have to do with disagreements. It's just busyness. And because I see that happening here, that's why I say, okay, well, I'm not happy here. And my family is not a big enough anchor to keep me. Like, we have Zoom now, if people want to see me,
yes, we do.
We can hit, you can hit me up. I plan on having a big enough place to have company if I can afford it.
Right on, bro. I will be there for sure.
I'm going to come visit you first, because it seems like you're going to get your set up before I do.
Well, I can't release this episode till Wednesday, because I haven't put in my notice yet. So I haven't really officially announced my departure to Texas. But after Wednesday, I will be officially on my way, or at the very least leaving my current job, which is exciting.
Gotcha. Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I mean, the FBI already knows, and hopefully the FBI is enjoying my podcast so far. But I want to ask you this, how I asked you the first question, which is when did you start speaking your truth? And now that I've had this discussion with you, Mike, would you start your own podcast?
I'm tempted to do so, but I would need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And not only that, I need help on the technology front, because I can do the content. I can figure out, titles of videos. I can do the creative aspect of it, but I'm lacking in the hardware and the skill set for the uploading of things, the editing of things.
I'm sure you can understand why
equipment.
I bring it up, because you have a great mindset and you have a lot of skills and talent. And I think I'm just saying this as your friend, you have a lot to share with people, and I'm honored that you came on my podcast, and I could definitely see you going on to grow your own community, and I would love to be a part of that. If you have any interest in doing so, I would love to help you out. And I think honestly, just as a suggestion, more than bring it up, because for me personally, it's given me a lot more hope. And I think for a time I was very black pilled, and I felt like there was no one to talk to. And then this community that I've kind of fallen into is really opened my eyes. It's just like you've been saying. I'm so happy that we're circling back to community and unity. And what was that acronym? MAGS, right?
MAGS, Mutual Assistance Groups.
Mutual Assistance Groups. And that is a beautiful thing, man. I would really love to look more into that while I'm still here in Connecticut, but also when I'm out in Texas and I'm building a new network and I have new neighbors. I'm going to keep that in my heart at all times. This fact that no matter how much food or water you might have on you, if you don't have a community, you're probably not going to survive. Or if you are surviving, you won't be living. And that's what we're all trying to do, is live our best life, pursue happiness, and not to be tread on by these quote unquote, assholes. Yeah. Well, to wrap things up, I have two more questions for you. And
sure.
Like I said, I appreciate you being here. And my first question is, well, if you were to suggest any further resources, so that could be YouTube channels, podcasts, or websites, or anything at all. If people have been listening for this amount of time and they want to learn more and they want to do their own due diligence, where would you send them?
I'm glad you asked. I'm going to go into my subscriptions really quick, and I'll read you some in real time.
Right on. Are these YouTube subs? Is this what you're looking
This is
at?
going to be YouTube's subs in particular. Yes.
Awesome.
That's
awesome.
YouTube has been a big resource for me.
Yeah.
That's who I choose, or these are some of the people that I choose to listen to and to
Awesome.
take notes from.
Yeah,
So
man.
like in general, you want to cover a few bases. So there's like a few good news aggregators that I like for, especially when we talk about like these big like spending bills and these stimulus packages and whatnot in the past couple of years. There's been two really good YouTube channels. One of them is Stephen Gardner, and he covers just news in DC in general and a few culture war issues, but it's super condensed, like 15 minutes at the most.
Perfect.
And he is neutral. He's not super slanted at all. I know that I probably give off a vibe where I listen to only slanted people, but it's not really the
We're all
case
human.
in terms of that channel. The other guy is Clearview Taxes, and he's a very clean cut, slicked over hair, sharp dressed Asian gentleman from the Southwest that is a accountant, like tax kind of guy.
Nice.
He goes over crypto advice, but he also does great news updates for the current conflict in Europe and also what's happening in DC and President Biden's popularity and all these other things. He is more slanted to the right. Like you can definitely tell the way he covers things that he's pissed off and not happy about things. But like being pissed off about the current situation doesn't make you conservative. It makes you a red-blooded American that's
Thank
paying attention.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
So a couple of good people that I pull for real like education. So one YouTube channel is Active Self-Protection, and that's going to cover some first aid knowledge, some hand-to-hand skills in terms of self-defense. And there's a lot of review of badge camera and security camera footage of people defending themselves. Some of it is police action, some of it is civilians. And it shows good and bad outcomes and talks about philosophy lessons that you can learn about what went wrong here. And it talks about spiritual fitness, physical fitness, having the skills, having the tools.
That guy's really funny, by the way. I'm glad that you sent that one to me. There was like an altercation in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, you're like, look at this. This is Texas. I'm like, oh shit.
John Correa is the host, and he kind of made a couple of jokes about himself because he's like a little bit on the rotund side, but in the past couple of years he's trimmed down. So like he walks the walk in terms of being physically fit. He's not like a Steven Seagal who's like he can barely move, and he's like, I'm a weapons expert, and I'm like, bro, you've got so much arthritis and you're out of shape. What do you diabetes, exactly. All right, who else we got here? So there's Canadian Prepper. I mean, it's self-titled.
I thought it was called China.
China, yeah, it's getting there. He is paying attention very much to the war in Europe and how that affects global supply chains and whatnot, and the movement of troops. He has people coming, emailing him and calling him from Eastern Europe and giving the real skinny on what's happening. Because we can get Russia's state media telling us stuff. We can get Ukraine's president telling us stuff, but there's severe slant. There's no transparency. We all know they're leaving stuff out. We don't even know who's doing better because we're hearing the complete opposite from both sides.
Yeah.
And
as far as I'm concerned, we're absolutely clueless.
Exactly. Another one is city prepping, and he goes over considerations for a lot of different things. You can go through his whole channel because the most recent stuff from those two prepping channels is going to be, unfortunately, a lot of coverage of food shortages, global famine. Some of it is like global warming preaching a little bit, but I mean, if half of our country's in drought right now, they're not wrong. It's just some of it has to do with how we irrigated things for like 50 years. I'm looking at you, California. And then some of it is, greenhouse gases, and some of it is just the wrath of God, unfortunately.
That's always a factor.
The one YouTube channel that really got me started in this whole thing is a bit of a kooky guy by the name of, because, tinfoil hat, of course, a kooky guy by the name of Nuttin Fancy, and that's Nutn Fancy. He does a lot of gear reviews for guns, knives, and whatnot. Like, in case you guys didn't know, like, I collect knives, okay?
Nice.
Like, this was the start of me having, like, gear, is, like, getting a bunch of different knives.
No one can say that he's not prepared because he just showed us a case full of knives, like a John Locke character from Lost. You know, he's got plenty
Oh, yeah.
of gear.
Yeah.
Ready to
I've got
go
that.
for your
That, oh
spiritual
my God.
walkabout.
I need to look up that scene. I'm not willing to rewatch Lost all over again because it's such a rabbit hole to fall in. But that scene where John is like, "Oh, you guys need knives," and then he goes into his luggage. He's like, "Here you go," and he has all of the knives.
Oh my God!
And
yes, he does.
He was like Oprah. It was hilarious, and everyone's
knife.
like, "What were you on the plane for if you had all these knives?"
You know what though? You know what? People thought he was crazy. Like, that's that crazy guy with all those knives. But where did the boar come from? Who got them boar? You know, they were fucking hungry, and John Locke provided them with dinner. Who
allowed them to defend themselves early on? Exactly. Unfortunately, that also led to threatening each other. But you know, that's
you're
neither
with
here nor
fire
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you got to cover your basics. So this nothing fancy guy. He does gear reviews for knives, guns, backpacks. He talks philosophy in terms of, different levels of first aid kits, different levels of backpacks that you need. He talks about. He has his own acronyms. That's how long he's been doing this.
Nice.
So he's got like SAWC, size and weight considerations or constraints. So when you're talking about backpacking, you need to consider the size and weight of each item that you're putting in your bag so that you're not overweight and you still have your full capabilities out in the bush. Whether you can't carry 5 cutting tools, it's just not practical. You need to pick 2 really good ones. So he's really all about like knives and stuff, but he's covered so much stuff. He kind of goes on a rant about like Obama being evil or whatever. Again, he's a bit.
Everyone's got something, man. Yeah.
Everyone's got something. Canadian preppers being kind of doom and gloom right now, where he really thinks that the war in Europe is going to kick off. I can't speak to that because I don't have all the intel that he does. From what I watch, he's dead ass serious that like it's not going to calm down and Poland is going to be like invaded or hit or whatever, and it's going to escalate to like NATO and us getting involved. We can talk about, or like, NBC or whatever can talk about Ukraine's doing great and we're giving them a bunch of money. Like, if Russia's mad enough, they'll do big stuff. And it's, even if the big stuff is in Europe, we're going to get involved. And guess what, Jake? You and I, we're in the draft age.
Bro, I was talking to my father about this. He was drafted in the tail end of the Vietnam War, and he was still in high school. He didn't graduate yet. He wasn't 18. And thank God the war ended right before he graduated. Otherwise, he would have been shipped immediately after graduation out to some base. And they even sent him for his physical and his checkup to like make sure he was ready, because they were ready to send him. And I mean, if he had gone, I probably would not be here. I probably wouldn't exist.
Yeah, they said that the average lifespan of the private, the green guy going into the jungle was like minutes, because that's how bad things were. And like, I can't remember the exact stat, but like they said, like, you got like 10 minutes, bro. Like most guys are just not coming home.
Lucky if you get
and
15.
Like we've all seen like the whole Red Dawn situation, right? Like we've seen those movies,
or Lieutenant
it's like, we
Dan.
can do it, guys. And it's like, that's great. The Russians have air support. The guys we've been fighting, Lieutenant Dan, they ain't got no legs. The guys that we've been fighting for a while now, they're not the same level as the Russians. The guys, like the Russians have armor, they have hypersonic missiles, they have up-to-date aircraft, they have all these things, and they can block communications in like several like miles of radius until Elon put his Starlink over. They
Yeah.
shut down communications for
Yeah.
Ukrainians entirely.
There's
They
this
had a
great
truck
Twitter
with a big
feed.
jammer. They rolled it
Yeah.
out there, and
Sorry, yeah, it's getting a little laggy.
yeah.
There's a great Twitter feed that'll show like a graph of bandwidth, and then like there are certain points where it just totally drops, and it's like, well, they pulled the plug there. That's for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I hear
man.
you.
Well, it seems like my bandwidth can only withstand about like an hour and 25 minutes before it starts to cut me off. I think the feds are like, all right, guys, enough. You gotta wrap it up. And I don't want to. Like, I would love to
That would be
continue, but
weird.
yeah, I mean that's I've got the Google Wi-Fi, so you know it's definitely it's up to no good is what I would say. But with
I
this
said Russia and
bandwidth,
Ukraine too many times.
yeah, right. You know, the AI bots have picked up all sorts of things, but thank God because I've not been censored and I don't plan on being censored. And I mean that like not in an ignorant way. Like, I mean, like, if I'm taken down on one channel, find me on a different channel. Like, I'm not going to give up and I'm doing this because there's no price tag on these conversations, man. Like, you couldn't pay me X amount of dollars to do this because really, this is the most valuable thing ever to be able to speak freely and to speak our truth. And as a means of wrapping up, Mike, I want to thank you for being here. And I have one last question for you on the Local Listens podcast. I always end by asking people if you could think back as far as you want, you know, who you were yesterday, who you were last week or last month or last decade. Think about what you've been through. Think about the challenges that you've overcome. And I want you to think about your past self who might need some advice or some tips. So if you could go back to any point and give yourself some advice or some guidance, what would you say to your past self, Mike?
I would say focus on yourself. I would say don't stop being active. Don't fall in a hole. Don't get in a rut on one specific activity and try to continue being a well-balanced person. Like I'm trying to get back into reading. I have all these titles of these books.
Bushcraft 101.
Yeah,
that looks like a badass
I'll read
book.
them off. I got Bushcraft 101. I have Foraging New England. I've got Forgotten Skills of Self-Sufficiency by the Mormon Pioneers. And I've got Special Operations Forces Medical Handbook. So I expanded my library specifically for broadening my skill sets for this hobby. And I have like, I think 7 or 8 titles total, and then some self-help books and spirituality books to balance out that as well.
Yes, sir.
I want to go back and I want to say that like I want to focus on financial well-being. I want to focus on physical fitness, and I want to focus on building healthier relationships, because we've all had relationships where in retrospect we're like, wow, I was being used, I was a doormat. Like
been there.
And it's with romantic with women, and then with guys as in certain friendships.
Yeah,
I was in a friendship, and all of a sudden you get to like a certain stage in life and you realize this person is like very much against you in a lot of ways. I won't name names obviously, but all of a sudden you get people that are like, oh, your way of thinking is wrong, you're an idiot, you're a child. And it's like, you were at my birthday a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And so current events can bring out like some nastiness in people in terms of differences of opinion. But just remember, there's no right or wrong right now. There's just a plane crash dumpster fire, and we're all in it. Left, right, center, anarchist, doesn't matter. We're all in it. So that goes back to the idea of community. We all need to give a shit about each other, because everyone is an asset. Like Negan says, everyone is an asset. People are an asset. You need to have people and get along with people to make shit better, to make shit happen. So those are the pieces of advice that I would say. I would say try to focus on yourself, your financial well-being, and your physical fitness, because I've struggled with physical fitness most of my life. You know, I got really better for a while, and then certain things happened where my career path changed. I no longer wanted to go into law enforcement. And then I just fell off the rocker going to the gym and doing my one meal a day and all that stuff. And, you know, I got to be up over 200 pounds again. So, you know, I'm ahead of the game in terms of being well fed during the food shortages. So that's good. But, yeah, it's still something that's got to be worked on, because, you know, rock hard abs make the bad guys run away. So food for thought. Yeah, Jake, you're safe. Don't worry.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, you know, man, we've known each other since kindergarten, probably like a little bit before then, because I moved to Newtown from Hamden right as I started kindergarten, and you were already there. And man, I've got to say, I guess we could say safely, it's been over 23 years that we've known each other. And I got to say, man, I'm very proud of you, and I'm excited for you to create this Badlands lifestyle that you've been dreaming of. And like we've been dreaming of this together since those damn mandates were put in place, and we weren't sure what was going to happen, if we were going to lose our jobs, or we were like going on hikes and just talking about it nonstop, because there was nothing else to think about besides our own security. And
it swallowed our world whole, that's for sure, man. And I'm glad we're able to get out of that and focus on other things, you know, like World War III.
Right. Yeah. This is like season 2 of the craziest TV show I have ever watched. But I keep
thinking of the newscast during the Simpsons movie. So this is day 47 under the dome, and things have gotten worse.
Dude, that's funny that you brought that up, because like so I have a friend in Michigan, and he's talking about like a bunch of dead fish turned up, and I'm like, oh man, that's the beginning of the Simpsons movie. Next is going to be the dome, and like that's what's coming next. But what I was going to say is, like, despite all this craziness, which, yes, I mean, we could do many episodes, Mike. I'd love to have you back on anytime about whatever you want. Bushcraft, the crazy conspiracies, the media, the just the state of whatever we want to discuss. And I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. So I just want to make sure I let you know that you're welcome back anytime, my friend. And I'm happy that we could bridge our mutual interest and our mutual responsibility, because we've both changed quite a lot in the last couple of years. And I'm really happy that you focus on community, because despite all this craziness, this point that I really want to make today as we wrap up is, it's easy to become black-pilled. It's easy to become nihilistic. It really takes work to build community, and it's worth all the blood, sweat, and tears. And brother, happy that we've stayed connected, and now we're connected in a whole new way on the Ethernet, internet. Hello, FBI. Nice to meet you guys. And you cannot stop us no matter what. We are here to stay. Oh, man. If you're watching on YouTube, you've been blessed with that. So anyways, thank you again for being here, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure. Happy Cinco de Mayonnaise. And I look forward to doing this again, man.
All right. Take care. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening, guys. Peace. Howdy, y'all. Thanks for sticking around to the outro of episode 15 of Loco Listens podcast. And I just want to give Mike a big thanks, because not only did you teach us very practical skills and some very interesting tips on how to be prepared, how to stay prepared, and how to help other people become prepared. It was pretty cool that you reminded all of us of a great lesson, which is you have to stay balanced. If you want to stash a bunch of food, that's fine, but you have to cover your other bases as well. And the most important base that I'm glad that we got to speak about today was community and having sanity. And without those two things, without sanity, without a stable sense of your mental well-being, well, you're not going to be prepared for anything. So that was a great reminder. I'm so blessed for this community that we find ourselves in, whether it's the podcasters, the YouTubers, all the people out here sharing knowledge, trying to help others benefit and help others be prepared. So for that, Mike, I appreciate you very much, brother. And it's so cool, like I said in the beginning, never been able to interview someone that I personally know in my personal life. So It was a really cool milestone for myself, man, and really looking forward to having you back on. There's so much more to be discussed, and based on all of the long hikes that we've taken together, just discussing the 2020 madness, I'm sure we could do many episodes and have a great time. So thanks, brother. Hope you had fun. I am certainly enjoying talking to you, and I am looking forward to figuring out what to talk about next. But till then, hope everyone's doing well. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much for the positivity and encouragement. And if you want to join the conversation on our Telegram group, just go to t.me/loco listeners. That's t.me/loco listeners. And I will leave you guys with this final message. Wherever you are, be here, be now, and be you. Cheers.